Lately, I've had a new realization about self-confidence. Confidence is like a ladder, a scale, you know? At the lowest end, there's insecurity, and at the highest, there's confidence. We're all on a different rung at any given time. Not long ago, I thought I was at the peak of my self-confidence. I truly believed I had reached the most balanced state of self-assurance. I wasn't comparing myself to others anymore, and I felt I was an amazing person. Everything in my life was going so well, I was so confident, so in love with life. Then, suddenly, I developed a crush on a guy. And you know that feeling when you like someone? The first thing that crosses your mind isn't, will we end up together? No, the first thing you think is, am I even worthy of them? When I thought that, I felt incredibly insecure because the person I liked, they were so far out of my league. They were truly radiant. How should I put this accurately? Honestly, I wasn't born confident. If anyone knew me from the age of 18 onwards, they'd probably think I was super confident. They'd definitely think, wow, an MC standing on stage in front of tens of thousands of people, someone who isn't afraid to present to a crowd, they must be incredibly confident, right? I used to think that too. I used to believe that anyone who dared to stand before a crowd and speak their mind was inherently confident. But as I grew up with each passing year and each experience, my understanding of confidence, my rungs on the ladder, kept changing. I'm still quite young, only in my 20s, so I've only experienced 3 levels of confidence. The first level is the confidence we feel when we dare to stand before a crowd. That's confidence in our external appearance. The second level of confidence, I believe, is when we no longer compare ourselves to others. We feel good about ourselves and understand our own worth, so we stop measuring ourselves against others. And the third level of confidence is what I just mentioned to you. It's when we truly feel we deserve anything good that comes our way. As I said, I wasn't born confident. When I was a kid, talking to strangers would make my face turn bright red. I was so shy. Imagine, from a timid little girl like that to who I am now, I think I'm quite confident. It's been a long journey, and I want to share it with you. I'll tell you about each stage, one by one. My family didn't live in the city. We lived in a small town, in a small district, in a small province. So, if you called me a country bumpkin, it wouldn't be wrong. If you say it jokingly, not in a discriminating way, then country bumpkin fits. All the adults around us instilled in us the idea that all we needed to do was study well. As a child, I studied intensely. In my town, I was considered one of the smartest. Pretty impressive, right? At that time, I was so confident. I thought I was probably the smartest person in the world, in Vietnam even. I thought I was incredibly, incredibly smart, and that made me confident. That confidence lasted until I got into the provincial specialized high school and moved to the city to study. It was exactly like being a frog at the bottom of a well. When I finally escaped that well and swam out into the river, I drowned everyone. Everyone around me was better than me. The being smart thing that I always thought made me superior to others, it couldn't shine anymore. My classmates were so brilliant, so much smarter than me. So my biggest strength, the thing I was most confident in, the only anchor for my self-esteem, was gone. From my entire district, only about 6 or 7 of us got into specialized high schools, and each of us went to a different class. So, when I moved to the city, I practically had no old friends. Suddenly, I stepped into a new environment where everyone was brilliant, and I felt so lost. A 15-year-old girl arriving in the city, feeling utterly adrift and unable to make new friends. My self-confidence was completely drained. Those from the countryside, like me, would probably understand. City kids might find it harder to grasp this feeling. When you first move to the city, you see that city kids are so different from you. They look so beautiful and fashionable. They often have special talents. They can draw, play instruments, sing. And not just that, they have gold and silver medals from sports competitions like swimming, badminton, chess. I was a kid who, for over a decade, knew nothing but studying, like a literal factory-farmed chicken. So suddenly, meeting friends like that, I felt incredibly insecure, everyone. I felt like I couldn't compare to anyone and utterly awkward. So I became an insecure and introverted person. Back then, I went to middle school in a village school, and at those schools, students didn't prepare slides to present. But when I got to high school, my teachers said they'd give us opportunities to present in front of the class, to work in groups to improve teamwork skills. I had never presented before. I was so scared. I thought, If they make me stand in front of the class and present to my classmates now, I'll surely faint everyone. I'll literally pass out. Of course, I took on the task of making the slides. And then, an event happened that truly changed my life. It really did. It steered my life in a direction I never could have imagined. Honestly, looking back now, I see that was the turning point that changed my life. That day, it was for an English presentation. There was a girl, totally like the main character in those youth romance dramas, really smart, beautiful, and fashionable. She was assigned to do the presentation. But on the morning of the presentation, something happened and she got sick. She messaged us, and we didn't have time to prepare a replacement or ask the teacher to postpone. Back then, my family was from the South, and all my friends spoke with a Southern accent. I was the only one with a Northern accent. And for some reason, everyone in our group, except for the girl who was supposed to present, was introverted just like me. So they said, "Oh, En Hung, please, we're begging you. You're the only one with a Northern accent, it sounds better for presenting. Just go up there, read it, and come back down. Don't worry about it, just so the whole group doesn't get a 0. At that moment, I literally wanted to faint everyone. I really wanted to pass out. So I did the whole presentation. And then when the teacher gave her feedback, oh my God, she was absolutely incredible. You have no idea how she praised me. She said, "Oh, En Hung, have you ever taken any MC classes? Your voice is so good. Your presentation is great. Your demeanor is so confident. En Hung, you have so much potential in these areas." I was in shock, everyone. Because in the mind of a 15-year-old girl who had never spoken in front of a crowd, being praised felt incredibly happy. And I was too young then to understand that my teacher was just encouraging me, praising me. She was so understanding. I believed what she said was true, that I did a fantastic job, and that I had a talent for MC work and presenting. I genuinely believed it, everyone. And after that day, since we were the first group to present and no one else had gone yet, my classmates, you know how high school kids, especially new ones, try to be nice to make friends? They also praised me after the presentation, saying, "Wow, En Hung, you were amazing." So I truly believed it. I genuinely believed my presentation was amazing. From then on, whenever our group had a presentation assignment, I always volunteered to present. And do you understand that feeling when you've already convinced yourself in your head that you're good enough at something? You want to do it more. And doing it more might mean some failures, but it also genuinely makes you better. And I just kept developing in that direction. I kept presenting more, and gradually, I became the school's MC. Looking back now, I realize that some people's words can change your life forever. They're encouraging words. I don't know if they were accidental or intentional. I don't know if they realized how profound their impact was, but those very words changed my life. I can't imagine what would have happened if I hadn't met such a kind English teacher back then. If I had encountered a teacher who nitpicked my mistakes, criticized my pronunciation, or blamed me for being unconfident, I would undoubtedly have remained an introverted girl forever, never imagining I'd one day become an MC or a decent podcaster for that matter. So, that's why finding positive people to bring into our lives is incredibly important, everyone. Truly, incredibly important. Because I'm terrified of being hypnotized by negative people. I don't like it when I tell someone a plan or a project, and they just shoot it down, saying, "Oh, you can't do that, you're not good enough." I'm so afraid of being hypnotized into believing I'm incapable that I can't do anything. I really fear that. Other people's words are a form of suggestion, a subtle influence. And when others influence us through their words or actions, we align with those ideas in our subconscious, forming a response to that suggestion. We might think, outsiders are always more clear-headed than those involved. Even my friends think I can't do it, that I don't have what it takes. So that means I can't do it, and there's no point in trying. And it's these very thoughts that strip us of the chance to try, the chance to succeed. Several years have passed. I remember now that my teacher was truly wonderful because she praised me in a way that made me feel like I was doing great. But in reality, I was absolutely terrible that day, everyone. You can imagine. This is real life, not some idle drama where a shy, timid girl can suddenly transform into a superstar. That never happens. It's a process. And you know what? When you do something enough and people praise you saying, "Wow, you're good at that," you start to like it. And if you like it, you do it more. Doing it more makes you get better, and you get praised even more. Everything just repeats in that cycle, and you start to see it as your passion. You believe you genuinely like this thing, that you're truly passionate about it. At that point, I thought I genuinely loved being an MC. So, I decided not to attend university in the South, but to go north for my studies, because I wanted to become an MC or an editor for VTV. So, I moved to Hanoi for university. Back then, I applied to my school's MC club. Before, when I was an MC, I didn't get nervous, because being an MC was just like being a storyteller. People wouldn't judge me too harshly, and I rarely looked at the audience's faces to see if they were judging me. But when I applied to the club at my university, I knew that the older students below were evaluating me. They were judging whether this girl was worthy, if she hosted well, what mistakes they could pick out. I was incredibly nervous, everyone. I was literally trembling as I hosted. It was almost funny to me. Why was someone with extensive MC experience from high school still so nervous? Getting into the club involved multiple rounds, and luckily, I passed that round. I went online and read that the fear of public speaking is a legitimate human fear dating back to prehistoric times. Our ancestors would hunt in packs, and when an individual saw many eyes staring at them, it was a signal of danger, that the pack wanted to attack them. This mechanism has been passed down to our generation. Every time we feel many eyes on us, a danger switch inside us rings an alarm bell, warning us to run, it's dangerous. That's why we're afraid when we speak in front of a crowd. So, okay, I understood that. And I kept telling myself, come on, they're just seeing if you're worthy. They don't want to eat you alive or anything. Just try to breathe, try to calm down. And I did just that. Fortunately, in my subsequent casting rounds, I was quite confident. That's how I completed the first rung of confidence in my external appearance. My life just kept going like that. At that point, I thought I was super confident. That kind of confidence felt like the highest level possible. Like me, some people misunderstand confidence. Most people think confidence means being bright and sparkling, someone who stands out in a crowd, an extrovert. But there are many types of confidence, and everyone is confident in their own way. Many people are confident in being quiet, preferring to listen, but when they do speak, their words carry weight. True confidence comes from within. Confidence is when we truly believe in ourselves, we believe we can do it, and we don't compare ourselves to others. Something happened that made me discover the second rung of confidence. During the entire pandemic, I stayed home, being sluggish, not developing myself, not reading books. I think, subconsciously, I started to feel inadequate. So when I returned to school on the very first day, for the very first presentation after the pandemic break, I was trembling as I presented. I was absolutely shaking like crazy, everyone. I was so nervous. At that moment, I was genuinely confused, truly shocked, everyone. Imagine, someone who had presented in front of thousands of people, someone who had probably given hundreds of classroom presentations, was now still trembling during a classroom presentation. At that moment, I was utterly bewildered, so incredibly confused. And I realized, confidence, like other states, requires constant action and effort to maintain it. It's not something you achieve and then don't have to work on anymore. That's not how it works. And when I realized that, I understood that confidence doesn't just come from an external appearance. Confidence has to come from within. We have to be confident internally first. Only then can that confidence radiate outwards. Confidence means trusting ourselves, right? And for us to trust ourselves, we also have to be trustworthy. So the first rule is, never break a promise to yourself. If you've promised yourself you'll do something, you have asterisk to do it, you have asterisk to achieve every goal. Our brains are smart, everyone. When we consistently achieve the goals we set, our brain develops a mechanism that says, okay, this person is trustworthy. I ran and my legs hurt like crazy, everyone, but I kept pushing myself. Every day I tried to run a little more. And with that effort, my self-confidence also grew significantly. I became more and more confident. The same applies to things like learning English, reading books, and so on. In general, by completing the tasks I set for myself, I noticed my confidence increased quite a bit. So after going to the gym and nurturing myself back to convince my brain to please, trust yourself, be confident, my self-confidence returned. The next day, I had a presentation on world civilization's history. Oh my God, such a heavy task, everyone. Basically, the whole group's grade depended on the presenter. If I didn't do well this time, I was toast. Not just me, my friends would kill me, so I had to try really, really hard. If we want to do well, we first have to understand the task we're doing. So, to genuinely present well, read the presentation over and over again. I read it so many times, imagine, I would even record it on my phone and listen with earphones while cooking or doing anything else, just to unconsciously practice. So, I practically memorized the presentation. I didn't need to hold papers to read anymore. And when I went up to present, I fully understood what I was saying. You know that confidence of a person who understands what they're saying and what they're doing? It's like having the upper hand, having control. That day, I presented extremely well. So well that my teacher gave the whole group a pretty high grade, asterisk, and she gave me an extra 10 points for the presentation, saying she wanted to add another plus to my 10% grade. Meaning, it was so good that a 10 wasn't enough, so she wanted to give me an extra point. So, this is the formula. Turns out, if you want to present well, you just have to read it enough times. Everyone, just keep reading it until you've practically memorized it like I did. I swear, you'll definitely be less nervous. When we're prepared, we're much more confident. I've noticed with girls like me, on days when we look pretty, our hair is neat and clean, and we're dressed nicely, we feel so much more confident. It's not because we're beautiful or because others praise us. It's because we've prepared well enough for this appearance. So, that's the second formula for confidence: prepare everything thoroughly. Overall, the process of building one's individual self is a very long, truly challenging journey. I was lucky that in high school, I met some wonderful teachers. Back then, I took extra math classes with a teacher. He was truly, calling him an idol isn't quite right. I don't really want anyone to be an idol. But he was someone, an ideal role model I wanted to emulate. My teacher wasn't someone who talked a lot or always stood out in a crowd. He spoke very little, but everything he said was incredibly sure. Whenever I listened to him talk, I always thought, if even I feel so trusting and find him so credible when he speaks, then he himself must really trust himself, he must be incredibly confident. And it's true, when someone possesses genuine confidence, others can feel it immediately. You don't even have to show it. My teacher's gaze was incredibly resolute, and his posture looked truly steady, genuinely trustworthy. Back then, whenever I went to school early, I'd often stay and talk to my teacher, and he taught me many interesting lessons. He used to address me informally, saying "may" and "tao." He told me that a confident person isn't someone who thinks they can do everything. A confident person is someone who knows their own limits, someone who knows what they want and refuses what they don't want. They set goals and steadily follow those goals. I kept striving to build myself up this way, and I noticed my confidence increasing. Yet, even with that confidence, I still often compared myself to others. I still frequently felt inferior, like I wasn't as good as anyone, always feeling pressured when comparing myself to those around me. Then, another event pushed me to change. I fell in love with someone. He attended a top-tier university. One we used to joke was for the elite. You had to be extremely smart and wealthy to study there. So, when we started dating, I felt incredibly inferior to him, and I became utterly self-conscious. My ex-boyfriend was quite good at making me feel wonderfully loved and like I was an amazing person. Gradually, he made me see that I deserved to be loved and that I was worthy of him. He truly loved me, said I was wonderful, and told me not to doubt his choice. To this day, I'm still grateful to my ex-boyfriend because he always loved me in such an incredible way and always saw me that way. It was those very things that motivated me to develop myself further. I was still in love, but I still had insecurities. That is, until this happened, there was a girl who also attended the same school as my ex-boyfriend. She was truly what people call the perfect child, incredibly beautiful, wealthy, and brilliant. Of course, everyone at that school was smart and rich, but this girl was like the smartest among the smart and unbelievably gorgeous. She pursued my boyfriend very intensely. When I compared myself to her, I felt incredibly insecure, everyone. Oh my God, she had everything I didn't. I felt like I couldn't surpass her in anything. I even told my boyfriend, oh my God, I feel so insecure because my rival is someone like asterisk that. And my boyfriend said, I'm not looking for a perfect person to love. I love you for who you are. If I kept looking for a perfect person to love, when would it ever be enough? Am I supposed to chase after every better girl who comes along? Is that love? No, that's not love. I'm in love and I have a girlfriend. I'm not chasing something on Mars with no end in sight. When I heard him comfort me like that, I felt a little better at that moment. But honestly, it was only a fleeting relief. I couldn't become confident overnight, and my insecurity eventually led to some very bad times in our relationship. There were times when I fought over nothing, fights that stemmed from feeling inadequate. In short, that very insecurity made me do extremely foolish things. In the end, the reason we broke up wasn't because of that girl, nor was it because my boyfriend failed to make me feel amazing. There were many reasons for it to end, but I believe my insecurity played a part in our relationship ending. And that's when I realized that if I wanted to be confident, I had to see myself as good first and stop comparing myself to others. There's a segment from Thymon's podcast that went viral on TikTok. Thymon recounted watching a movie where a girl loved a guy, but she had to go explore the world on her own. After coming back from her solo world exploration, she told him, "It's not that I can't live without you, but I like having you in my life." Hearing that story, I had so many epiphanies. I realized that true love means having your own life, and love is just a small part of that life. When I feel good enough about myself, I won't compare myself to others anymore. And when I become a better, more complete version of myself, the people who love me will also breathe easier. Like, I can't always expect my partner to constantly uplift me. I have to be the one to do that for myself, to see myself as a wonderful person first. So, after breaking up with him, I went through a period of feeling quite down, but I worked really hard on building myself up and striving to become a better version of myself. By this point, I think I've done pretty well at not comparing myself to others anymore. Now, I think back and compare myself to my rival from back then, to that girl, and I realize she might genuinely be better than me in many ways. But everyone has their own path, and I don't need to compare myself to her. I also have good things about me, good aspects, and there's no reason for me to constantly try to catch up with her. Because if you keep comparing yourself, it'll never be enough. There's always a higher mountain beyond the mountain you see, and that will never make me happy. I realized that, and the latter half of 2022 was quite good for me, as I mentioned in podcast episode 31. That's when I felt my life was complete with everything. I felt confident, I achieved the goals I set, I was confident, and I no longer compared myself to others. I thought that was the pinnacle of self-confidence. And then another thing happened, as I just mentioned. I developed a crush on this guy, so much so that every time I thought of him, I'd get excited. I liked him like crazily liked him. You could call him the crush. This was the first time I had ever actively liked someone this much. Before, in high school, I had plenty of crushes, but back then it was more like, okay, I like them, just for the fun of it, without any hopes of a relationship or gazing at them with sparkling eyes. But this was the first time I actively liked someone first, and liked them so intensely, so much that I was worried about gaining or losing them. In short, I liked him so much that when I texted him, I felt myself trembling. I'd be nervous, then happy, then sad, all emotions at once. The feeling of liking someone first is truly strange. I felt incredibly excited, and my body always felt like it was about to explode. My emotions were constantly fluctuating, and it felt like I couldn't control them anymore. And you know what? When we like someone, the very first thing I thought wasn't, do they like me? Or, will we end up together? No, the first thing I thought was, am I worthy of them? That's when I felt incredibly insecure. Liking someone is when we start to feel insecure, and that very insecurity prevents me from showing my true self, my intelligence, my clear-headedness. Actually, my taste has always been for people who are above me. I've always liked knowledgeable people, people who, whenever they speak, make me go wow, and watch them with wide eyes. I like people like that. My past relationships, my ex-boyfriends, my past situationships, were all with people who were far superior to me, genuinely brilliant and amazing. But as I said, this was the first time I was proactively interested in someone like this. In previous relationships, others always sought me out first. They pursued me, so I'd think, well, you chose me. You like me, even though I'm not as good as you still like me, right? That made me feel less insecure. But here, I was actively liking him first, so I was constantly afraid that he wouldn't like me, that he'd find me unworthy of him, and that he wouldn't love me. When I talked to him, I felt like my knowledge shrunk into a tiny speck within his vast ocean of understanding. Everything he said was new and fascinating to me. While talking, I felt incredibly insecure, completely at a loss for how to reply to his messages. And I just told him directly, Oh my God, I don't know what to say back. I'm racking my brain trying to figure out what to tell you, how to respond. I don't know how to pursue you. I spilled everything I was thinking. I told him it was the first time I liked someone like this, and also the first time I realized how insecure I was. I felt that before, I was okay just being an ordinary person, nothing outstanding. But when I met him, I started to feel that being ordinary wasn't good enough. I only wanted to have extraordinary things like him. Well, he was quite good about it. He told me that my unsmartness was actually endearing. He said I should just talk normally and never put pressure on myself to say something wow like he did. He told me not to emphasize trying to appear smart or trying to compare myself to anyone because that would make me unnatural. He told me to just be confident. The worst that could happen is we don't end up together. You're amazing, just keep trying to be a better version of yourself, but that doesn't mean you're not amazing right now. You're great already, but keep striving for more. He didn't trample on me or tear down my fragile self-confidence, so I was very grateful. And I'll give you a little spoiler, so you don't think I'm about to get a boyfriend after my silly crush process. After talking and flirting with him, I realized he would never come back to Vietnam, and I had no intention of moving abroad. So there was no point in us being together. At that point, I was also very grateful for his appearance because thanks to him, I discovered a new rung of confidence that I needed to conquer. I had to realize that I am worthy of good things. And that's why I'm sharing this podcast with all of you. Oh right, there's one more thing. Before, I didn't dare to meet and talk to many strangers because I was too shy and I didn't know what to say. But lately, as you all know, I've been doing TikTok and often get bookings to review books. So when I review books, I have to read quite a lot. I used to read, but not as much as now. Currently, reading books is like my job, so I have to read quite a bit. And when I read a lot of books, I gain a lot of new knowledge. So when I talk to strangers, I have more things to say. And when they talk about their issues, it might be something I already know about, so I can communicate more smoothly. No, smoothly isn't the right word. I can communicate in a more interesting way. So, I think the secret to being confident or communicating well is that we truly need to have a solid foundation. When we have a good foundation, when we're not just empty vessels but actual jars, then we can communicate with others. If we just read tips and tricks online about how to communicate well and then follow them, those are just superficial. If we don't have the ingredients, how can we have a mold to create beautiful cakes? Those tips are just like the molds, but if we don't even have the ingredients, how can we make a cake, right? So once again, I advise everyone to read books or explore many other sources of knowledge online. Now, let's start, everyone. Let's try to develop ourselves. The more we develop, the more confident we'll become. There's nothing to worry about. So, read a lot. If you don't read, then watch a lot, learn a lot, and have new curiosity and inquisitiveness about life, everyone.